Alter Bridge have played over 800 shows over the last 18 years, performing songs from every single album dozens, if not hundreds of times. Some tracks like Blackbird and Metalingus are staples of the setlist and will never change, whereas other songs have been cast to the wayside over time, or just forgotten entirely. In today's video, we're going to talk about how Alter Bridge's setlists have changed over time, and why nowadays they play the same songs every night. So, let's get started. Over the last month, Alter Bridge's fan groups have been obsessed with sharing setlists from their Pawns and Kings tour in Europe. It seems like every day I see a post sharing the latest setlist, and then 5 more posts detailing people's feelings towards it. There's been a lot of talk of disappointment regarding the song choices, and while I do agree to an extent with people's gripes, I think there's a bigger picture that many people are missing. That said, to understand the reasoning for Alter Bridge's current setlist, we need to go back to the beginning. June 7th, 2004, Spokane, Washington, Alter Bridge's first show of their One Day Remains tour. The album wouldn't release for another 2 months, but the band was already hitting the stage. Unfortunately, Setlist.fm offers no data on which songs were performed at this show or the several that followed, but we can draw the logical conclusion that the band performed various songs from their debut record along with a few covers. And this is how shows would be for the next 2 to 3 years, playing the same dozen songs from One Day Remains night after night, with the occasional cover of Led Zeppelin, Ozzy Osbourne, AC/DC, and other classic rock icons. It wasn't until the lead up to their sophomore release, Blackbird, that new songs would begin to appear. Come to Life, Ties That Bind, and Buried Alive were sneaking their way into shows to garner hype for their next record. And when it finally dropped, man, it was open season. They now had twice as many tracks to choose from, and considering they'd been playing the same album non-stop for the last 3 years, those new songs were a breath of fresh air, both for the band and the fans. More experienced with touring and able to cinch headliner slots for more shows, Alter Bridge expanded their setlist to 16, even sometimes 18 tracks, setting the meta for most setlists to come for the following years. But even with the expanded setlist, the band now had decisions to make. To accommodate fan favorites from One Day Remains and new hits from Blackbird, some tracks would need to be cut. Of course, back then, it was easy for them to cycle through songs and give each one some stage time over the course of a tour, because they only had about 24 to pick from. That is not the case anymore, but we'll touch on that again later. Alter Bridge continued this setup until about 2009, when Mark, Scott, and Brian would split off for a brief reunion with Creed. However, this set something in motion that would redefine the lives for all 4 band members for the years to come. Because while Creed was touring their 4th and final record, Full Circle, Miles began exploring his own side projects outside of Alter Bridge. His solo career was budding, though it wouldn't officially take form until 2017's Year of the Tiger. More importantly though, Miles' relationship with Slash had developed into full-on collaborations and providing lead vocals for Slash's first solo tour. When the band returned in 2010 for their 3rd album, AB3, things were different, as they had all gained some experience outside of Alter Bridge. And that led to an incredible record that still holds up as one of their best. But in the tour that followed, the problem presented during Blackbird's tour returned with a vengeance. At this point, the band had recorded nearly 40 official tracks, way too many to cover in one show. Also, they'd released multiple banger tracks that fans were dying to hear at every single show, like Rise Today, Metalingus, Isolation, Blackbird, Ghost of Days Gone By, Open Your Eyes, and many more. This meant that only a handful of deep cuts or non-fan favorites could make it onto a setlist, shrinking the amount of variation possible between shows. In addition, AB3 was the band's most ambitious album at the time, with intricate riffs and melodies that would be challenging to perform live. The band had crossed the threshold of writing songs that were bigger than what could be consistently feasible, and that is a whole separate topic that I'm not going to get into today. In order to play these difficult songs, the band required more rehearsal time, which is exactly what they lacked due to their solo projects. As a result, some songs were rarely or even never added to a setlist, like Fallout, Words Darker Than Their Wings, or Make It Right. Unfortunately, what followed this album would only exacerbate the problems presented during live shows. But before I get into that, let me know what your favorite Alter Bridge live album is down in the comments. In 2012, Alter Bridge once again split up to pursue side projects. Mark premiered his debut solo album, All I Was, under the name Tremonti. Scott joined with members of Sevendust to record Human with the band Projected, and Miles officially teamed up with Slash and the Conspirators for their first record, Apocalyptic Love. I love all of them, But their inception has created a new problem unique to Alter Bridge. Across all of their different projects, the 4 members of Alter Bridge have recorded hundreds of songs, and it's nearly impossible to keep them all straight. I can't think of a single artist who has a similar situation. Though there are plenty of classic rock bands who have written massive amounts of music over 40 to 50 year long careers, but that's usually with the same band. Of course, no member of Alter Bridge has contributed to every single song in the Alter Bridge universe, but still, Miles has written lyrics to almost 100 Alter Bridge songs, as well as almost 60 songs with Slash and 24 of his own. I don't know about you, but I don't think I'd be able to remember the words to even half that many songs, let alone also be able to play precise guitar riffs and solos along with them. It's just too much information to store in one brain. So what does this result in? Couple of things. As the years have passed and more music has been added to the entire discography of the Alter Bridge universe, it gets harder and harder to incorporate new or uncommon songs into a set list. The same issues presented during Blackbird and AB3 have been increased tenfold, and since the band isn't getting any younger, extending their sets to monstrous proportions isn't a good option either. Miles needs to be able to sing every song night after night without getting too fatigued, and also remember the lyrics to each song as well. For any band with a large catalog, this can be an issue, but Miles is the lead vocalist and lyricist for nearly 200 songs across 3 different groups, and that's not even including all of the music that he wrote before Alter Bridge. He said during interviews that songs have started to blend together over the last few years due to the sheer volume, and honestly, I get it. Don't get me wrong, I love all of the side projects, and I would be super bummed if we didn't have them anymore, but I do have to acknowledge the side effects that they cause. So now that brings us to the current tour. Alter Bridge started out with a main set of 16 songs and a 2-song encore. Of this 18-track set list, 4 were the singles from Pawns and Kings, accompanied by many of their biggest hits from previous albums. A few uncommon songs have made some appearances, like The Other Side, Slip to the Void, and Lover, but the band gradually settled into a more comfortable layout of almost exclusively big hits. They've also trimmed the total set down to 16 songs, much to the dismay of many fans. It appears that the order is now pretty much set in stone, despite the band suggesting early on that they might rotate some rarities into each show. Many people are wondering why they're still playing oldies like Addicted to Pain, Open Your Eyes, and Rise Today, despite having them in circulation for decades. Alter Bridge has a lot of good music besides their biggest hits, and they know fans will probably enjoy anything they throw at them. Well, a recent interview from the Behind the Setlist podcast might shed some light on the situation. Mark and Miles explained that big sing-along tracks help bridge the gap between the band and the crowd, and allow them to end shows on a high note. To accomplish this, they need to play familiar songs that the majority of the crowd will know most of the lyrics to. They specifically cite Broken Wings and Open Your Eyes as being perfect for this, especially with the vocal breakdown in the bridge of the latter song. Anytime the crowd can take over the vocals of a song during a show, it gives the vocalist a chance to rest and regroup, which is why you'll see Miles so often encourage the crowd to sing at the beginning of a verse or chorus. Additionally, any familiar songs they play at a show will likely get the crowd really pumped up, even if they've heard that song a million times before. It's no fun playing music to a bunch of blank and confused faces, so keeping up the crowd's energy is paramount for a successful show. If you want to check out the full podcast, I've left a link to it on Spotify in the description below. Finally, with how much this band writes and tours, it's often impractical for them to add unfamiliar songs to their sets when they don't have much time to rehearse or relearn them. Miles, Mark, Scott, and Brian hold themselves to a really high standard in everything they create, so they don't want to attempt a song unprepared and then have it bomb as a result. As a musician and an entertainer, I totally respect that. They're professionals, and when they perform live, they have a responsibility to deliver an entertaining, satisfying experience to everyone in attendance. That is a tough thing to do, and they know that some people will never be happy with their decisions, but hey, that's show business. It's like bowling. You gotta focus on knocking down as many pins as possible. If you only pay attention to one, you'll never land a strike. And yes, for those of you who noticed, I did borrow that from Parks and Recreation. Now that we've established which songs Alter Bridge likes to perform, you're probably wondering why certain songs have never made an appearance during a live show, even before the side projects began. If that's the case, then you should watch this video next where I will answer that exact question. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.